Hello and welcome back to our van build series. We've been busy converting our 2019 high roof transit van into a tiny home on wheels. So far we've shared the installation of our subfloor, MaxxAir roof fan, wall and ceiling installation, and sleeping area. If this is your first time joining us or you've missed any of our progress, we invite you to check out our past videos. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you don't want to miss future episodes.
This week, we're moving on to what we think is the most exciting part of the build so far, where we'll finally be able to see all of our hard work coming together. We're finishing the ceiling and some of the walls. As we've shared in the past, recycling and repurposing are important to us, and we like to save money. The methods we've chosen are super low budget, other than the cost of the paint and screws. Come along with us for this next step of the build and let us know what you think.
We're finally ready for the most exciting part of the build so far for me, finishing the ceiling and some of our walls. My department is design, and this is where I get to do my thing. After considering various options, we decided to go low budget and use repurposed materials instead of buying new materials such as shiplap or tongue and groove. We hunted until we found a nice stack of used fence pickets, something rather easy to do as people are often replacing fences in our area. The pieces were rough and weathered, so Steve spent some time cleaning them and sanding them down. There are certain things we don't skimp on, but we've done and seen enough projects using repurposed wood that we're confident this will result in a look and function that we'll be happy with. We try to use salvaged materials as much as possible, and this is a great solution for keeping our build costs down. Also, for the design of our van, we want to go for a beachy, eclectic, somewhat shabby chic look, so we think using old wood will work well.
We laid out all the fence pickets to see if we had enough for the project. In doing so, we discovered that the size of the pickets were not exactly the same, so we measured and labeled each picket and tried to match widths as we laid out the pieces end to end. It required a lot of rearranging to get them to match up properly. As it turned out, we had just the right amount of pieces.
So we're going to use fence pickets for the ceiling of the van, because we were able to find some that had been used. The problem is that they're all different lengths, widths, different widths. So what we've done is we've measured and labeled them all, and now we're trying to lay them out and put the ones that have the same width together. And then once we have them kind of laid out, we'll cut them to size and attempt to put them up and hope it works. I'll trim that piece, and then this one goes here.
Audra created a diagram for arranging the fence pickets into a pattern that will work with the dimension of the van.
So 60 inches and a half, right?
Referring to the diagram, we proceeded to trim all the pieces and lay them out on the floor so they will fit together with minimal gaps and the more noticeable imperfections to be hidden by things such as cabinets.
So that one needs to be 67 inches and a quarter. So we have the floor pieces all cut to length, and this is the diagram we used that I mocked up on the computer with all the different lengths to try to figure out how we were going to lay it out, and then we referred to this as we were cutting each piece, and it seems to have worked pretty well. Next, we moved on to choosing the finish for the pickets.
The mad scientist workstation.
I'm not a mad scientist, I'm a mad mixologist. We knew what stain we wanted to use on the fence wood, one we've used for other projects, but it's a good thing we tested it first. So, this is the color we liked. We did this test piece with the Kona stain. But then when we tried on other wood, it's a lot darker, so now we're trying to figure out what to do. Because this is Kona, and this also is Kona. Kind of a difference. Due to the soft nature of fence wood, it actually absorbs stain much more than other wood we have worked with, resulting in the stain looking much darker and more opaque than normal. We tested different finishes to decide what we like best.
Ich lieg auf meiner Wiese und ich schaue in den Himmel. Ich schließe meine Augen und ich lausche den Vögeln. Der wunderschöne Duft, der durch meine Nase geht. Eine leichte Brise Wind, die gerade vorbei weht. Genau das brauche ich, um meine Traumwelt zu sinken. Einfach fallen lassen und an nichts mehr denken. Denn in meinem Traum entstehen so viele schöne Sachen. Seifenblasen bringen mich zum Lachen. Alles ist unkompliziert und leicht, alles geht schon wieder. Fast von allein, so entspannend. Kann ein Tagtraum sein, loslassen und einfach frei sein. Ich tauch, dieses Träumen ist einfach reinste Magie.
So here are all my samples. We started with a pretty dark color. I'm trying to point them out here. This is a dark walnut color, but we thought it was too opaque, just too dark for the van, like almost black. And then we did a Kona finish that we liked a little bit more, but that also was pretty solid. So we experimented with sanding, which we liked a little bit more, but it's still pretty dark, and that would be a lot of work to have to sand everything after we stain. So, and then I experimented. Well, there actually was one piece. This was the Kona stain that we really liked, but we realized it actually only worked because of some kind of finish that must have been on the fence wood already, because anything else we did was darker. So then I started experimenting with paint and making a wash, and we was able to come up with this color with the paint we had. Kind of looks like an aged driftwood type color that some people might like, but we actually want more of a darker color. So then we went and we bought some dark brown paint, and I think I'm liking how this looks. These pieces aren't quite dry yet, but I think they actually look pretty similar to this piece that we wanted to start with, that look. What do you guys think? If it's not dark enough, I could try doing another coat, so we'll see. But I think we might have it. And then just for comparison, here's the wood without any finish. A lot lighter. So the paint seems to work better for letting the actual natural look of the wood show through. We liked the result of the paint as a wash and started applying it to the pickets the same as we would a stain. As you'll see, the wood pickets are quite absorbent. When we first applied the paint, it looked almost opaque, but the wood sucks it up like a sponge, so we know we'll need to do at least a couple coats. We spent the next couple of days giving the pickets several coats of the paint wash and then doing additional touch-ups where needed.
We started putting up the first fence pickets, starting at the center point in the back, then moving up toward the front, then working our way to the passenger side first, and then to the driver's side.
Does that work?
I measured, marked, and cut the pickets that need to fit around the MaxxAir vent. Some people sink and fill over the screws or buy special screws, but we decided we didn't mind the look of standard screws showing. Next, we decided on the positioning of our puck lights. And we used a hole saw to cut the holes for the lights.
Nice. Good job.
You did it, little drill, you did it.
Our little holes for our light pucks. Puck lights. Light pucks, puck lights.
We also ran some wires for the lights. We plan to talk more about this in a future episode.
As we progressed, we added Havelock sheep wool in the gap between the Polyiso insulation and fence pickets. This might be insulation overkill, but we figured that the upper part of the van is what takes the brunt of the sun, so we thought it would be a good idea to insulate that well. The added soft insulation should also act as a sound deadener when there is heavy rain. Plus, the Polyiso insulation was free, so it was no extra cost to do both. If you'd like to learn more about why we chose the combination of insulation materials that we have, check out the description for this video. We'll share more information there.
As we got more and more pickets up, we turned our attention to the front of the van. I worked on adding some additional ceiling frame support where the fence pieces will meet the front of the cargo area. We considered taking down the headliner to insulate that area, but that seemed like a complicated step that we wanted to avoid if possible. It seemed too easy to break the clips that hold the headliner in place, and we found that we could feed the sheep wool insulation in and distribute it in the area using various tools, including a piece of skinny bamboo. Thankfully, Audra's arms are skinny enough that she could reach her arm in completely.
How's it taste? Does it have a very farmy aftertaste?
Tastes like lamb. Okay.
We're pretty happy with how the ceiling is looking so far.
Steve spent a good chunk of time trimming the final picket pieces to fit around the headliner and kerfing the pickets so they would bend enough to fit the contour of the front of the van, which is quite curved. To kerf the wood, he used a circular saw to cut a series of shallow, parallel lines into the pickets, which makes it flexible, allowing it to bend. We stumbled upon this technique and think it's a really great solution for handling areas that are not straight. Well, it's raining today. And there's Steve in the garage working. I'm in the van here. We are just finishing up the ceiling wood. We were going to put up the last couple pieces, but for some reason they weren't fitting, so now Steve's trying to cut some other pieces to fit better, switching some pieces around for this final area. And I started working on the wall wood. Yesterday I laid out some pallet wood and painted it last night, and this is how it's laid out, the first part that we're going to then transfer. Alright, so up here, and our van will actually start looking like a camper van instead of a messy, haphazard cargo van. I did a dark paint wash on the wood as a base for my finishing technique. Then I did a light, dry application of white paint to give it a beachy, weathered type look, which I think will help it look better up against the dark ceiling wood. The contrast won't be so stark and ties the two together more visually. After getting the pieces cut to size and painted, we worked on installing them. I tried to design the placement of the cuts so the seams would be nicely staggered, and I numbered the pieces to keep track of where each went in the design. We got the pallets for this project from a neighbor, and we already had the paint, so the only cost involved was really just the screws. Pallet wood is fairly easy to find. We think it's a good solution if you have a small budget, but check the marking on the wood to make sure that what you use is safe for interior use. We'll include a link about this in the video description. We worked on countersinking the screws into the pieces, and I spackled, sanded, and touched up some of the holes.
One of the last things to wrap up this step of the build was to trim and install the MaxxAir fan trim piece. After measuring the depth needed for the trim piece to fit the ceiling, I used a jigsaw with a fine-tooth blade to make the cut. As you'll see here shortly, the cut didn't need to be super precise as it'll be hidden by the fan itself. For good measure, I gave it a quick sanding to eliminate any plastic spurs. We inserted the trim piece and screwed it into place with screws that came with the fan. We're pretty happy with the end results. As always, we hope you have found this video interesting or helpful.
If so, please click that like button. Make sure to subscribe and tune in for next week's episode. See you then!
Did it break?
So we're gonna do... No. Put it in reverse. Should be on 10 to loosen it. That... That's not it.
Put it on the permanent.
This, and I'll do it. How do you... How do you do that? It hurt. I did it before. It's supposed to be on reverse. Huh? Does it hold it really hard?
To change your speed, you don't have it on reverse, I don't think.
Oh. Is that why it was not working? It's supposed to be on the... Well, I was able to do this before. Why is it not working? My hand's starting to hurt.
Grip it like you mean it.
Are you sure it's all on the right setting?
Do it.
I did it before. Alright, where'd the drill bit go? Alright, so... Now what? Put it on... Same thing?
You want to try to hold it. Do it with one hand. Yep. So you can see what you're doing.
How you can hold it in place.
Ich lieg auf meiner Wiese und ich schaue in den Himmel. Ich schließe meine Augen und ich lausche den Vögeln. Der wunderschöne Duft, der durch meine Nase geht. Eine leichte Brise Wind, die gerade vorbei weht. Genau das brauche ich, um meine Traumwelt zu sinken. Einfach fallen lassen und an nichts mehr denken. Denn in meinem Traum entstehen so viele schöne Sachen. Seifenblasen bringen mich zum Lachen. Alles ist unkompliziert und leicht. Alles geht schon wieder fast von allein. So entspannend kann ein Tagtraum sein. Loslassen und einfach frei sein. Ich tauche ein und ich tauche wieder auf. Ich atme ein und ich atme wieder aus. Kopf hoch, dieses Träumen ist einfach reinste Magie.